Prince Harry and Meghan Markle were named as environmental role models for deciding to have no more than 2 children to reduce their impact on the planet, and they've made a point of their plans in all sorts of interviews.
Well, now some potential parents say they're cutting down on the number of kids that they plan to have. Even some scrapping the idea of parenthood altogether due to their concerns about the carbon footprint of their offspring.
So it's the question of the morning. Should we be having fewer kids for the sake of the environment? Saying yes, we should be having less is climate activist Anna Hughes, who's made a personal pledge not to have children, and Real Housewives of Jersey star and mum of 4, Tessa Harmon. Anna, let's start with you. I mean, presumably you wouldn't go down as far as the Chinese approach to this subject, where they just issue statist dystopian decrees and say to their population, you cannot have more than 2 or 3 or 1 children. It varies. Presumably you would keep this as a personal choice, wouldn't you?
That's right, Richard. And yeah, I think any policy that tells you what to do and that issues a number or a restriction from on high is not a good policy. It's not empowering. It's not going to help anybody. This needs to be a free choice. So I've made a free choice not to have any children. I would hope that people will make a choice about their family size, which we should all be free to make, but with the impact upon society and on the planet in mind.
But can I just ask you about that choice? It's a heck of a decision for anybody to make. If we didn't have this crisis, if we weren't facing the problems that we're clearly facing, just imagine that we lived on a perfect planet and we hadn't done what we've done to it. Would you have children?
I think that's an impossible question because we are where we are, and this is the reality, and this is the decision I have made based on that reality. So it's about emissions. Sure, you've talked about emissions already, but it's also about resource use, it's about space, it's about school places, it's about housing, it's about our water. It's everything that we humans do have an impact upon the planet. And at the moment, there are more of us on the planet than can sustainably be provided for. So yeah, we are where we are. This is the decision I have made, and it's something that, as you say, more and more women are choosing.
So you've made a personal sacrifice to not have children to benefit the planet. It's a very community-minded decision. What then do you make of people who make a completely different decision, have plenty of children? Are you, in some sense, judging what they're doing? Are you disappointed by their decision to have lots of children because you've decided not to?
So, first of all, I don't see it as a sacrifice. This is a positive decision I've made. Second, it's not for the planet necessarily, it's for us. So, the planet will survive. It's probably going to throw us off it quite soon, but it's for us, and it's for our stability and our lives. We are going to find life increasingly difficult, and indeed we already are. And it's not just places in other parts of the world who are suffering the effects of climate change and biodiversity loss. It's us now. We're seeing extreme weather. We're starting to see reduction in the amount of food we can grow. These problems are only going to get worse. So it is for us that I'm making this decision.
But as I say, but if you've made that decision for us, but other people don't make that decision, what do you feel about those people who don't limit the number of children that they have?
Yeah, so it's difficult to. I mean, I'm not sitting here in judgment of anyone. I'm from a large family myself. I have 3 sisters, and so obviously my parents decided to have 4 kids. I had a great time growing up. I love my sisters, and it's wonderful to be part of a large family. And I understand that. I really, kids bring joy, and lots of kids bring lots of joy.
Absolutely.
That is the reality of it. But I would argue that now we know where we are. Now we know the terrible damage and impact we are creating on the planet. And you only have to listen to people like David Attenborough, who made a very impassioned speech at the COP Climate Summit, where I'm at here in Glasgow at the moment, about our future and how we need to make sure that we are making things right for our children. Well, that to me means I would want people to look at their family size as part of that and make a choice that will sustain the planet for their kids as well.
Well, Anna, I have to say, as a father of 4, I've got 2 stepsons and I've got 2 children by my marriage to Julia. I take my hat off at your self-sacrifice, because you're right. Children bring not just enormous joy, but they give you a fantastic point to your life. In my experience, they give it a direction it simply wouldn't have had if they hadn't come along. So I think you are making a real sacrifice.
Tessa Hartman,
Tessa,
because you're a mum of 4. Does any of it make you feel guilty?
No, not at all. Look, I think, first of all, Anna, as you said, has made a great sacrifice, and to have that amount of passion about the environmental issue is only admirable. However, I do think the notion that we should limit the amount of children we have is anti-biological, is anti-economical. And the reality is, if we don't solve our fossil fuel problems, whether we have 2 children or no children or 5 children, that's not going to help the climate issue. The climate issue is so hugely complex in our world, as they're discussing in COP26. And in actual fact, children don't actually give a lot of carbon emissions. You could actually fly 2 transatlantic flights less a year than it would be to save the same amount of carbon emissions of having a child. Added to that, our job as parents is to bring the children into this new world, to educate them, to make sure they buy less, to make sure we use green energy, to recycle and so on. This is a far bigger, complex issue than just not having children. And if it was that way, then it would have worked for the Chinese, and it certainly hasn't worked for the Chinese. They've completely changed their policy now, because not only do they have a human resource problem, but they have a problem about who's going to look after their old. So it is quite a complex issue.
Anna, you make some very, very good points there. But if you were a friend of Anna's, if she was your next-door neighbour, if she was a friend of yours from school, would you be trying to talk her out of this?
No, I don't think I would. I think it's personal choice. I think Anna has a right to choose, and I have a right to choose. If you're lucky enough to have children, it should be your right to bring them into this world. How you bring them as a parent and make them climate conscious is your duty now. But it's not our duty to limit, or should anyone tell us how many children we should have. Because actually, if you look through history, we've been here before. The world is cycles. It goes up and down in terms of, procreation, and that's what it is. Actually, if you go back to the Cold War, people didn't want to have children because they were so afraid of nuclear annihilation. That didn't happen. We're in a crisis, but not having children is not the solution.
Gonna have to wrap it there. But just to make the point, Anna is not saying that we should all do that. She's simply made her personal choice, and it's an extraordinary one, unbelievable.
Anna, Tessa, thanks very much indeed.